Welcome to the Bonfires Vintage, Portland, Oregon. This is my studio, Sleeper's Mountain. This is where we keep all my toys. I started off buying and selling, coming from a band background and just being a super nerd, and one thing led to another. And eventually I started selling on Reverb, and it kind of took on a life of its own, and now this is my job. This is my life. So, I mean, everything that's in here is something that I use in the studio and that I bought because I thought it was super cool and super nerdy, and I couldn't help myself. So this is an early 60s Epiphone professional model, which is the first guitar to have an integrated amplifier with reverb and tremolo. These came out in the early 60s in response to no demand whatsoever. This is the antecedent of every stupid guitar effects combination idea that's ever happened since 1962. And it's freaking wonderful. These are like a Veritone choke, as you might find on a 345 or a 355 or an EB3. So they just change the tonal quality of the single pickup. Right, this is the umbilical professional model for use in a professional environment, for example, a stage. So you have a good 6 feet of cable between you and your 10-watt amplifier. Yeah, so this multi-pin connector controls the frequency, depth, reverb, as well as the standard volume and tone. Epiphone used to be in New York. It was purchased by Gibson in 1957. And Gibson essentially adopted the model names and some of the smaller aspects of the Epiphone guitars, and then made slightly tweaked version of the Gibson guitars at the time. So of course the Casino is the 330, the Broadway is the 175, the Riviera is the 335. But then they made a couple of these oddballs when Gibson wanted to try something new and weird. They did it as an Epiphone so that they could protect their brand, at least for these early 60s Epiphones. You know, before the Beatles made the Casino famous. They're just incredibly well-made guitars. I mean, they are the equal or the better of any blue chip, top dollar Gibson you'll find from a player perspective. So this is a 1961, cusp of 1962 Gibson BARNEY KESSEL signature model. This is so extremely cool, both because, I mean, we can look at it, but also because it's been the recipient of a bunch of tasteful player mods. So this is actually a standard KESSEL. The Kustom would have had bow tie inlays and gold throughout, but at some points, I'm assuming contemporaneous with the purchase of the guitar, it was golded out. So this is the original PAF. This is a patent sticker humbucker, which is, you know, consonant with the time frame. You may have had some overlap between the two, but the gold covers would have been added. Same with the Bigsby, the Gold Grovers, but it's just a ferocious guitar. Fully hollow, double cutaway, mean, nasty. This is before the Trini Lopez came out, which is the half depth 335 style without the full hollow. But it's just a bitchin' guitar, and there's nothing else like it. Gibson poached this endorsement from K, because Barney KESSEL used to have a K signature guitar. And so Gibson poached Barney and made his signature model. what a yacht, you know? I mean, this is absurd. This is a circa 1968 Kustom K200. A very oddball guitar and one of my absolute favorites. The unsubstantiated rumor is that it's designed by Roger Rosmeisel, who did the Coronado, the Starcaster, the Rickenbackers, the Fender LTD, every weird-ass guitar from the mid to late 60s to early 70s. And it has a lot of those features because it has a cat eye cutaway, which is very Rickenbacker. The Rickenbacker style kind of control layout, but also has some cool Gretschy features like the zero nut with the DeArmond Dynasonic humbuckers that are just, and when you put it with the Bigsby and this semi-hollow body, it also is a little bit reminiscent of, say, the Telecaster Thin line, which was also a Roger design. But these were made for just a precious few years, perhaps 2 years around 1968, under this Kustom label that later became Ross. And just a fantastic oddity and one of my absolute favorite players. Right, so the Echolette, my favorite sleeper amps of all time. This is the Echolette B40N, B for bass. It's a little tube rectified 50 watt, 2 EL34s, 1 GZ34 rectifier, made in Germany in the 60s. Notably, their tape echoes are loved by Dunyan. Is that how you say it even? Dunyan? But the amplifiers themselves are absolutely outstanding. It's a tube rectified JTM 45. You know, famously the Echolettes were played by the Beatles in Hamburg and were the go-to amps for touring bands that were in Germany back in the day. And so a couple of them would bring them back, and you'll see them in the States every once in a while, but by and large they're only to be found in Europe. That's the bad news. The good news is they're basically free. And they're some of the best rock amps out there. I mean, they absolutely just destroy. So I'm also a synth nerd, and this is one of the nerdier synths in the collection. The OBERHEIM OBXA, this is with factory MIDI and the full 8-voice version. The OBX series was Oberheim's first really like user-friendly sort of commercial monster polysynth. What makes it stand out from the Memory Moog or the Prophet 5 is that it has a much bigger palette. It's so much more round. Just like those famously on Jump. Those Oberheim synth horns are just so big in the bottom and so well-rounded. I mean, this is a desert island synth for sure. So yonder in the corner is the synthesizer that eventually destroyed ARP and forced the company into bankruptcy. The Avatar, which you'll notice is not connected to a guitar synth because it never freaking worked. What you essentially have is a 4-oscillator ARP 2600 without the modular patch points, but it's all in there. The Avatar is basically an Odyssey in a box. Unlike the 2600, it's not $10,000. If you can find an Avatar, you're getting somewhere. Oof, it's a powerhouse, it's a monster synth.